October 20th, 1981, 3:55 p.m., a quiet fall afternoon in Rockland County, New York. The leaves are burning red and green. Children are just getting out of school, and local banks are wrapping up their day's deposits. But in the small community town of Nanuet, something is brewing just below the surface. Something revolutionary, something deadly. In 45 minutes, 2 police officers will be dead, a security officer will be bleeding out in the parking lot, and the FBI will have its eyes on a new kind of threat. Not foreign, not organized, but radical. Homegrown insurgents, many of whom called themselves freedom fighters. This just wasn't a robbery, it was a mission. What happens when the revolution doesn't die? It just goes underground. Today, we're digging into one of the most explosive political crimes of the 20th century, the 1981 Brink's robbery.
All rise. We are now on the black docket.
7:30 this morning, KPFK received a call from a woman identifying herself as a member of the Weather Underground.
To read a declaration of a state of war. This is the first communication from the Weatherman Underground. Kids know the lines are drawn. Revolution is touching all of our lives. Freaks are revolutionaries, and revolutionaries are freaks. If you want to find us, this is where we are. In every tribe, commune, dormitory, farmhouse, barracks, and townhouse, where kids are making love, smoking dope, and loading guns, fugitives from American justice are free to go. In the next 14 days, we will attack a symbol or institution of American injustice.
Sounds like something out of a spy thriller, right? But nah, this was very, very real, very American, very homegrown, and very white. I bet y'all didn't expect me to say that. I promise I'm not changing it up on us. It's still very black over here. Just vibe with me for a minute. I promise, promise, promise. I'm going to bring it right back home. I swear. Well, at least at the beginning of the story, it was white anyway. The Weather Underground, or Weathermen as they were first known, were born out of frustration, out of rage. These were mostly white, college-educated kids from middle-class families, radicalized by Vietnam, civil rights struggles, and the murder of Black revolutionaries like Fred Hampton. And if you just so happen to not know why they were pissed off so bad, don't worry. I got an episode on Fred Hampton that you can go listen to and educate yourself. Do y'all understand how bad something has to be for the whites to be mad about it? Yeah, they recognized that some bullshit was going on and they weren't going for it. They weren't about signing petitions or marching politely with signs. They were about that action, boss. They talk with bricks, firebombs, and blowing shit up like symbols and monuments of state violence that America likes to enshrine. That message we heard at the top of the episode, that was May 21st, 1970, and that voice was Bernadine Duran, a central leader of the Weather Underground organization. She recorded it, sent it to the news station and the radio for them to play it. They declared war on the United States government. Not metaphorically, not in tweets, and they definitely wasn't just shooting the shit. They meant that literally. They didn't wage their war in deserts or jungles. They brought it right to their enemy's front door, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, baby. After the declaration, though, the underground went ghost. And then they started talking again. March 1st, 1971, Capitol Hill. The Senate wing erupts in smoke and debris. No one is hurt, but a message is left behind. This act was done in protest of the U.S. invasion of Laos. The war has come home. May 19th, 1972, the Pentagon, Ho Chong Ming's birthday. And if you are like me and had no idea who Yo Chong Ming was, he was aptly known as Uncle Ho, and he was a Vietnamese revolutionary and politician who served as the founder and first president of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam from 1945 to his death in 1969. He was also their first prime minister from 1944 to 1955. He was on the same type of time in Vietnam that they was on over here in America. So just by osmosis, right? They had to do it in the name of him. On his birthday, a bomb detonates inside the women's restroom on the fourth floor of the Pentagon. Security starts to scramble like eggs. The Weather Underground claims it. Another recording drop. We attacked the Pentagon as a symbol of the American war machine. They were careful. They gave warning beforehand. They weren't trying to kill, they were trying to shake. June 9th, 1970, New York City Police Headquarters bombed in the dead of night. A nod to Fred Hampton, because y'all know they went in and shot him up in the dead of the night, and this was a warning to law enforcement. It wasn't just the government, it was the system, corporations, universities, courthouses. They all became targets. Nothing was off limits. October 6, 1969, Chicago. The Haymarket Police Station blown to pieces. The police in turn rebuilt the station with their bare hands, and guess what? The weathermen returned and blew it up again. It became a dark ritual, history rewritten in dust. In Sacramento, they bombed the Department of Corrections after George Jackson was killed in San Quentin. In Utah, they hit Connect corporations to protect U.S. mining in Chile. They hit Puerto Rican banks, universities, even blew up MIT's research labs because these were all symbols of empire in their eyes. These weren't random explosions. Each explosion spoke louder than words, etched in fire, forged in defiance. No casualties, though, but plenty of fear. The goal: expose the invisible, explode the comfortable. Were they freedom fighters? I think so. Terrorists? I mean, revolutionaries with a code? Absolutely. Or were they just lost youth with dynamite and too much grief? Y'all tell me what y'all think, because I believe sometimes you got to shake some shit up and nobody died. Listen, the weather people are okay with me in my book. While the Weather Underground was moving as a unit, is one person who stood out, and that was Miss Kathy Boudin. She didn't grow up anywhere near the streets of the South Bronx or the back alleys of Bed-Stuy. She was raised on the manicured lawns of Manhattan's Upper West Side, brownstone, beautiful, literal intellectuals on every block. Her father, Leonard Boudin, was a big shot civil attorney lawyer, the kind of man who defended Daniel Ellsberg. Apparently, this is a man that leaked the Pentagon Papers. Her daddy defended him. In that house, revolution was dinner table conversations. But revolution in theory is one thing. It's something else entirely when you start holding a gun and laying shit down. Her family talked about what they saw and what they heard, never thinking their daughter would morph into one of the biggest revolutionaries. Kathy was smart, Columbia educated. She moved through elite spaces with the kind of confidence only generational access could afford. And that's what we got to name early: access. Because for all of her talk about overthrowing the system, she always had a parachute of help and a lawyer daddy that none of her other comrades had. She wasn't born into struggle, she chose it. Kathy had been with it for a long time. In the late 60s, she joined Students for Democratic Society, the SDS, which was a leftist, idealistic, again, mostly white group. They organized protests against the Vietnam War, poverty, systemic racism, the usual suspects of topics that are easy to land on, right? But when the SDS fractured, she sided with the most radical splinter, the Weathered Underground. In 1970, three members of the Weathered Underground were building a bomb in the Greenwich Village townhome. That's in Brooklyn, by the way, y'all. Now, I don't know much about bomb making, but I am pretty sure building it in a townhouse is probably not a good idea. The plan was to detonate it at an army dance at Fort Dix, and they wanted to kill the soldiers and make a statement, right? But the bomb exploded early. The house literally blew sky high. 3 people died. And Kathy, she barely missed the blast, right? Do y'all know this damn lady ran out the house butt booty naked and was able to get away from the cops? Mind you, the police knew she was in there and got away. Nobody looked for her. They just left it that they couldn't find her and just chalked it up to, oh, she blew herself to smithereens in this house. Where she went, how she got there, how ain't nobody see this naked ass lady running away are all questions that need answers. That was her fork in the road. Did she walk away? Nope. She went deeper underground. Now, my people, let's chat. Because while I appreciate what she's doing, I also question the execution, right? What does it mean when a white woman can walk into revolution and try on militancy like a coat? And when it gets too hot, like literally, she can disappear, reinvent, become the poster child for dinner table debates and college protest posters. But for the black women in the struggle, Asada, Angela, Sophia, the price was steeper. They weren't celebrated, they were hunted down, set up, locked away, or chased across borders just for daring to fight back. So I'm not saying Kathy wasn't serious about the life because she most definitely was. But I think it's important to name how whiteness shaped her. For the next decade, Kathy lived underground. She moved through safe houses, hiding in plain sight. No name, no ID, no electricity in the safe houses, just ideology, paranoia, and purpose. But by 1981, she was back in motion, not just in the weather underground anymore, but linked up with a new, more militant force, the May 19th Communist Organization, also known as M19CO. The May 19th Communist Organization was born out of smoke. The smoke of bombed courthouses, the smoke of burned flags, the smoke of a country unraveling from the inside out, where assassinations, Vietnam, and civil unrest had already shattered the myth of the American innocence. They were the complete opposite of the weathermen. They believed in eye for an eye and they wanted them bodies to drop, baby. But what made the M19th different wasn't just the bombs. It was who they chose to align with and who they claimed to follow. The M19 was named for 2 birthdays, Malcolm X and Uncle Ho. They weren't shy about it. These were white radicals who saw themselves as comrades in the global struggle for the Black and Third World liberations. Their stated mission: support armed struggle, free political prisoners, and overthrow U.S. imperialism. But let's not get it twisted. M19 didn't lead the revolution. They were backing players, facilitators, funders, safe house runners, the ones with less surveillance, lighter sentences, and better cover. They were doing the heavy background work, and that's okay too, because they weren't acting alone. Because right in the crosshairs of history was the Black Liberation Army, born from the ashes of the Black Panther Party, forged by former Panthers like Assata Shakur, Zad Malik Shakur, and Sekou Odinga. The BLA wasn't talking about civil rights anymore. They were done with petitions, protests, and marching as well. They wanted to take the country down, brick by brick.
System that smashes the human being to the point where people don't even remember how to take a walk, how to say good morning, how to smile at each other. We have to take this planet back. from the beasts that are controlling it right now. The whole liberation of oppressed people in the United States had to do not with climbing up some ladder to success, not for asking to be just like Rockefeller or just like DuPont or just like Ford, because that would only continue the oppression and exploitation of oppressed people in the United States, and specifically African people born and raised in the United States. Socialism is an integral part of building social justice on this planet. The condition of my people, my history, was very much connected with other oppressed people, and I began to see that the same foot that was on the necks of the Vietnamese people, that was on the necks of all oppressed people on the planet, was the same foot that was on my neck. And so I began to understand that imperialism has to go. It is a poison that is killing people all over this world.
The BLA saw themselves as a guerrilla force, fighting a domestic war on liberation. They were heavily surveillanced, constantly hunted, and willing to take extreme risks. That included expropriation, armed robberies to fund their underground operations. And because this is a fully Black organization, they needed an ally. And enter M19. They had resources, connections, and the kind of protection that only whiteness can buy in a nation that it was built on. This alliance, the Black revolutionaries and the white radicals, wasn't simple solidarity. It was strategic, and it was also very, very messy. Because even in this so called movement, race didn't disappear, power didn't equalize. Who got the press? Who got the sympathy? Who got locked up? Who didn't? Those are the real questions behind closed doors. Now, don't trip. These are people who followed the teachings of people who felt like white people were the literal devil. So they had their reservations on trusting M19. They had questions like, were these whites truly down for the cause, or were they playing out a rebellious fantasy? And I mean, those were fair questions for sure. And look, they just needed to make sure that this was not performative activism just because. Because they knew when Black revolutionaries go underground, they disappear into the prison system or they die. When white revolutionaries go underground, they write books, they come up for parole, they teach at universities. That's the imbalance barked into every revolution. And they knew that, so they wanted to see where they stood even before they got too deep. But even in all of that, in 1981, the alliance felt real. It was wartime logic. M19 and the BLA formed a working unit. They planned together, they trained together, they moved money and weapons across state lines together. Revolution doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't appear fully formed with guns and armored vests either. Nor does it just come ready made with chants that are ready to be yelled. It starts in dorm rooms, in jail cells, at kitchen tables. It starts when people believe so deeply that the system can't be fixed, it has to be burnt down and built back up. And I'm telling this story like hell. I feel like that right now on this Easter Sunday. I feel like it needs to be burnt down and built back up. Because, Lord, I feel like we're in the pits of hell. Everyone has a job that has to be done, and they don't have time for any slacking. Mutulu Shakur, the mastermind, the leader, the ghost of the machine. Born Jarrell Wayne Williams in 1950 in Baltimore, raised in Queens by a blind Southern mother who came north chasing that great migration promise. What she raised wasn't just a son, she raised a storm. Matulu came up in the fires of Harlem politics, steeped in Black nationalism and the generational scars of slavery. But don't box him in as another street radical. He was precise, calculated, a certified acupuncturist, a panther, a liberation strategist, to many, a healer, to others, a threat. By 1980, the feds had him clocked. They knew about the prison break that he helped Assata Shakur vanish from beyond bars like smoke. They tracked him to safe houses, watched his moves through acupuncture clinics and radical health clinics, but they missed what really mattered. They missed the blueprint. They missed the quiet handshakes in living rooms and back alleys, the training sessions in basements, the whispers passed between the BLA and the radicals of M19. They were watching Matulu, but not closely enough to see the coalition he was stitching together. He was the thread, the bridge, the reason this alliance didn't just exist, the reason that it worked. A ghost on the radar, and yet, somehow, everywhere all at once. And beyond the movement, Matulu was something else too. A father figure, a compass for most, the kind of man that could turn ideology into execution and chaos into choreography. Oh, and sidebar, if that last name sounded a little bit familiar, he too was Tupac's stepfather. So if you were wondering where Pac got his revolutionary blood from, go ahead and connect them dots. His role in the heist? Planner, logistics chief, the architect behind the scenes, pulling threads, lining the pieces, making the impossible feel like strategy. Sekou Odinga. Now, let me catch y'all up on who Sekou was. He was born Nathaniel Barnes in Queens, New York. He came up in the era when the city was simmering with revolution just beyond the concrete. It wasn't long before he linked up with the Organization of Afro American Unity, the group founded by Malcolm X after he broke from the Nation of Islam, that is. And like so many young Black men watching their community drown in poverty, police raids, and government neglect, Sekou didn't just want to protest, he wanted liberation. And who could blame him? Sometimes you have to put your boots on the ground. He joined the Black Panther Party, and not just for the photo ops. He wanted to run free breakfast programs, political education classes, and patrols to keep the NYPD harassment in check. And if y'all listen to any of the early episodes, y'all know that I am in a one-sided beef with the NYPD because I think that they're a corrupt organization and they lie a lot. For reasons like this, because why do you need anybody to keep their harassment in check if they weren't liars? A lot. They just be doing stuff. So yeah, I'm beefing with NYPD, y'all. It wasn't all rallies and fist raises for Sekou though. He saw up close what the state did to people who dared to organize while Black. COINTELPRO wasn't just a conspiracy theory to him. It was a daily threat. By the early 70s, the Panthers were fracturing and the government was hunting Black radicals like animals. Sekou made a choice. He went underground. He joined the BLA because these weren't just folks with slogans. They were guerrilla thinkers, strategists, people who studied revolution the way others study law, ready to spit knowledge at anyone. Sekou took the name Odinga after a Kenyan anti-colonial leader, signaling his alignment not just with American Black liberation, but global struggle. And can I tell y'all something? My favorite part about revolutions is when they just go and change their names to anything they want. It be on some, yeah, I met this nice lady on the bus once and I liked her name and we were talking. And I'm just going to change my name to that. That is so fire to me. Like, I wonder how many name changes do they get? Like, is it you choose this name and you stuck with this name? Is it a limit? Can you change it? If anybody knows the answer to that question, can y'all please let me know? Please. Thank you. Sekou was with all the shits. He was directly involved in the prison break of Asada Shakur, helping her escape from the Clinton Correctional Facility. He planned the logistics, the vehicles, the safe houses, the escape routes. He wasn't just a distant player, he was in the weeds, making moves. His fingerprints were all over the operation. Even if the FBI couldn't pin him down at the time, it was bold, clean, and more than anything, it was successful. After that, Asada was gone, out of here, on her way to Cuba, and Sekou, he became public enemy number one. This man wasn't playing around. He wasn't writing letters about the revolution from the sidelines. He was out here risking everything. So by the time M19 started plotting armored truck hits and coordinated actions, Sekou wasn't new to this. He was deep in it. And that's what made him dangerous, not just to the government, But to any narrative that says liberation has to be polite, performative, or legal. Former Panther, prison escapee, guerrilla warrior. He had been on the run since breaking Asada out of jail in 1979, and his role in the heist: weapons transport, direct action, part of the team coordinating getaway vehicles and security. Now let's talk about names that they don't say out loud: Samuel Brown, Kawasi Balagoon, and Celio Chu Ferguson. You won't find these three headlining Netflix documentaries, no viral true crime series, but make no mistake, they weren't in the background. They were the unsung architects of movement work that had gone off the radar, but never off the mission. These weren't nostalgia pieces from the 60s, they were living, breathing insurgents in the 1980s. Former Black Panthers turned underground technicians, exile warriors, unforgiving of their politics, still fighting for the liberation of Black people, and by any means necessary. Samuel Brown was the ghost in the machine, soft spoken, but always two steps ahead. He wasn't out here making speeches, he was building logistics, stash houses, secure routes, surveillance clocks. Word was, he helped scout the route for the Brink's robbery. He plotted the rhythm of the street, the timing of the getaway. He didn't need credit, he needed the mission to go right. Kawasi Balagoon, now he was a live wire, a veteran of armed struggle, a poet with the Kalashnikov rhythm. The man had already pulled off the impossible once. Escaped from prison mid-trial. He walked out of the courtroom in a tailored suit like he just got a lunch break. Like he wasn't in the process of having to go back to his cell after this. Kawasi was believed to be the one who brought ideological fire to the crew. He trained the soldiers, he ran recon, and during the heist, he was armed support, one of the shooters at the scene. He didn't just believe in taking these people money, he embodied it. And then there was Chilio Ferguson, the youngest of the trio, but don't confuse youth with inexperience. He was strategic, efficient, and ruthless when he had to be. Chu worked communications, the lookout, the relay, the backup plan, eyes on the streets, footsteps behind the curtains. He was the one making sure the convoy stayed locked in motion. These men aren't martyrs. They weren't mascots. They were the movement men, soldiers with cause, operating under aliases, carrying pistols and principles. And when that Brinks truck rolled into Nyack on October 20th, 1981, they weren't tagging along. They were essential personnel. Fugitives, sure, but not in hiding. They were navigating a world that had declared war on them, and they responded. So when folks say Black resistance faded after the 1970s, tell them about these three. Tell them about Brown. Tell them about Balagoon. Tell them about Chu. Because if you looked away, you might have missed it. But they were the sequel the government did not want. And that day in Nyack, they weren't running. They was driving them cars. Now we're going to talk about old Kathy for one more time. So Kathy, by this time, had found her way to be a part of this group, and her role in the heist was road decoy, getaway driver. She was in the U-Haul truck that pulled away from the scene, smiling, holding a baby, hiding an arsenal. And when I say holding a baby, she is literally 9 months pregnant. So when Kathy signed up to ride shotgun on a Brinks robbery, it wasn't some philosophical stand anymore. This is a war she had been so desperately wanting to be a part of. And she not just going along for the ride, she's the face they're betting on to pass as just another innocent white woman if things go sideways. She was the Trojan horse. And in truth, it worked. Judith Allison Clark was a firebrand, a true believer. She was cut from the same cloth as Kathy, Jewish, middle class, politically radical, but her path was different. She was angrier, harsher, maybe more desperate to prove she was down. She shared her whiteness and stood shoulder to shoulder with those that she called comrades. She wasn't content with just watching. She wanted in. Her role in this heist? Wheelman, lookout, escape logistics. But the car she drove would be riddled with bullets by the end of the day. David Gilbert, the movement's brains, always reading, always plotting, always turning revolution into a daily to do list. He wasn't here to march, he was here to spark. The SDS taught him theory, the Weather Underground taught him how to light a fuse. And in his mind, the US was Rome, teetering, just waiting for that final match. And yeah, he was also Kathy's partner, comrade, and baby daddy, and also her co conspirator. His role in the Brink's job, armed support, transport crew. David was one of the ones in the van. Same for Kathy. They'd been off the grid since the 1970s because their faces was plastered on every most wanted list. But time is a funny little thing because the more of it passed, things change. Trails get cold, cops move on, and the heat fades. Kathy and David didn't just hide, they blended. Fake names, fake lives, resurfacing in Harlem and the Bronx, deep in radical circles. Ghosts moving right in the face of the folks looking for them. But under the surface, something was stirring. The NYPD Intel Squad caught wind of a string of armored truck hits. Messy, yes, but effective. Heavy artillery, military precision. It smelled like old school revolutionary theft. Whispers started floating from the Bronx. The comrades are back. Names like Matulu, Odinga, Kawasi, even Asada's name floated up through the grapevine. And that was 100% bullshit because by this time, Asada was sipping Cafe Buccino in Cuba, nowhere near New York. By 1981, the state had already drawn the line. Black radicals weren't just activists, they were targets. Until Pro may have ended on paper, but its spirit stayed strapped. The feds never stopped watching or listening. But here's the catch. They was chasing wrong leads and the absolute wrong people. They were still stuck in old school Panther and bomb makers, while the new crew was forming cross, radical, underground, strategic. Womp womp. They weren't making speeches, they were planning operations, escape routes, logistics, firepower. And while the FBI was busy tapping phones from post war, the new alliance was loading clips for the next one. Red flags was there. Before the robbery of 81 actually happened, two armed guards were killed in separate robberies, one in New Jersey and one in Connecticut. Same MO, fast, surgical, clean getaway. Ballistics pointed to black radical networks, but still, no one connected the dots. Despite all of their wiretaps, all of their watch lists, law enforcement still missed the plot. And when they did finally see it, oh, it was already too late. By this time, the M19 and the BLA have linked up. Together, they weren't a gang. They weren't a loose collection of outlaws. They were a paramilitary unit before bullets flew in the quiet suburb of Nyack, before armored vans and baby carriages became escape tools, and every single last one of them were already on the radar individually. So I can only imagine where they would land as a damn group. The Alphabet Boys, I'm talking about FBI, ATF, NYPD's Red Squad. They've been circling these names for years. Since COINTELPRO, since Panther 21, since the Weather Underground blew up the first building to send a message. That was in the 60s. These folks been wanted for 20 years. Talk about laying low, armed, organized, and committed to what they called expropriation. They had already stolen over $1 million across armed robberies leading up into this point. But this one, this Brink's job, this was the big one.
It's to represent me. I'm out for presidents to represent me. I'm out for presidents to represent me. I'm out for every presidents to represent me.
Who wanna bet us that we don't touch letters, stack cheddars forever? Live treacherous, all the et us. To the death of us, me and my confidants. We shine, you feel the ambiance, y'all niggas just rhyme.
The plan was simple. Hit a Brinks truck, get the cash, use it to fund a future that no longer relied on the government, or the illusion of the American democracy. 0.6 million in cash, 3 vehicles, 2 Brinks guards in the truck, an ambush at the Nanuet Mall. They were ready, or so they thought. They rehearsed it, they timed it, planned every single detail. But revolutions don't happen on paper. And we all know the actual thing rarely goes as planned. So, with that being said, what could possibly go wrong?
That cry for help. Officer down.
Monday, October 20th, 1981. The kind of crisp fall morning that makes you think everything's going to be all right. You wake up thinking this is going to be a good week. But under that blue suburban sky, in a sleepy parking lot of the Nanuet Mall, death was waiting, and it was right on time. It was a routine run for Brink's truck driver, Peter Page, along with his 2 coworkers, Joe Tambino and James Kelly. Pick up the money, get it back to the base, in and out. They've done this route hundreds of. The Brinks truck pulled up to the mall just before 3 p.m. Joe and James exited, headed towards the entry of the Nanuet National Bank. They didn't see the stolen U-Haul creeping into position behind them. I mean, why would they? They were thinking today is going to be like any other day. They didn't see the people watching them from the lot or the rifles tucked beneath the baby blankets and coats. But soon they will. At this time, Judith is in the car talking to herself. Breathe. Stay cool. Don't break character. She's the decoy, sitting in the front seat of the U-Haul. Blonde wig, oversized glasses, a baby carrier on her lap. No baby inside. Just a concealed M16 loaded and ready. Her job is to stall the guards if something goes wrong, to look like a suburban mom caught in the wrong lot, using her whiteness for the cause. Don't get messed up. This is bigger than you, bigger than any of us, she told herself. David, looking at his watch, getting his mind together, also talking to himself. 4 minutes, in and out. He's parked in a getaway vehicle. His partner is Kathy. She's watching the mall entrance. It's like a war zone. While Kathy's watching, David adjusted the rearview mirror. Behind him, the U-Haul doors swung open. It's go time. And just like that, shit started to happen fast. Powasi and Sam rushed the Brinks guards. They're covered in ski masks and Kevlar, M16s barking like war. Peter Page didn't even have time to turn. He was hit in the chest, killed instantaneously. Literal seconds into the plan, one person is already dead. And I'm also knowing that they had no contingency plan for all the times they practiced this. I'm sure this was missed. So Joe Tambino was hit in the shoulder, but he survives. James Kelly drops to the pavement, thinking it's probably best to get down because he's already seen his boys get popped. The crew grabbed the cash, $1.6 million, tosses it into the U-Haul, and just like that, they were gone. They vanished. At the scene, they talked to witnesses who said they thought it was a movie or something. They heard yelling, shots. Then somebody said they saw the guard just fall like a sack of potatoes. One shopper had to duck behind a car with her toddler. Can you imagine what you think is a cool morning out with your baby and literal bullets start flying? I would have been praying so hard over my baby because I just would want to make it back to my house. While she was ducking, others was running. While all this commotion was happening, the U-Haul was gone with all them people money in it. 60 seconds later, the local police got a call and all hell breaks loose.
Clarkstown police. Yeah, I have a problem at Nanuet National in the mall. Our armored truck was shot at. All right. Do you know if anybody was hurt? I don't know, but it says people were running all over the place. All right, can you hold on? Yeah. I'm going to need an ambulance. Somebody just yelled out, I need an ambulance. Shit. Nanuet National Bank in the mall, somebody shot at an armored car. They got a guy wounded, and somebody's been hit. Please put me in an ambulance, sir. Step it up, please. Can I get your last name? Horan, Horan.
K32 all cars and stations stand by for one alarm on an armed robbery. Just occurred in Nanuet Mall.
After the police knew they were going to have to work for real that day, they were looking for that U-Haul like their life depended on it. Shortly after, the U-Haul was spotted near the New York State Thruway. They didn't know it yet, but the real getaway car was already gone. They pulled a Fast and the Furious type switch up. The U-Haul is ditched for something less noticeable.
Hello, my name is Sandy Ferguson, and I live right behind Corvette in Nanuet. Yeah. And I just saw something strange happen behind Corvette.
Red van?
Yes, red van.
What'd they get into?
What did they get into?
Yeah, what'd they do?
Well, the van is stopped, opened up right behind the store here.
That red van is behind Corvette.
And it's all open, and all I saw was a yellow Honda sedan and a U-Haul truck.
Yellow Honda with the U-Haul?
Almost told me it's
Kathy and David were now behind the wheel of that Honda that Good Samaritan called the police and told that she saw them do the swap. Their job was to blend into traffic, disappear into suburbia. But something went wrong. The police wasn't playing and quickly set up a roadblock on Permanent Road. Kathy and her baby daddy didn't have any chill, looking at the fact that they knew they could not stop at this roadblock. The Honda literally plowed through the roadblock. The police understandably started bussing. More shots, more chaos. There was all this madness, bullets flying everywhere. And in this, Officer Edward O'Grady and Sergeant Waverly Brown were both hit and instantaneously killed. Now let's take a second right there. Officer Waverly Brown was the first Black officer on the Nyack Police Department, a military veteran. Community loved him. He had broken barriers just by wearing that badge. And on that day, he died in a shootout involving people who claimed to be fighting for Black liberation. Let that complexity sit with you. It's not a simple story. While it's unfortunate about Officer Waverly Brown, Officer Edward O'Grady was also Black. 2 Black men, lawmen, fathers, killed in a shootout by a movement that was supposed to protect Black life. By the end of the day, 2 officers were dead, 1 security guard, the getaway failed, all the money was recovered, and ultimately, this went down as a failed bank heist. They had the money for all of 6 minutes, and the revolution was over. Or was it just evolving? October 20th, 1981 didn't end with the Brink's truck ambush. It kept rolling into blood and into betrayal and into the bright fluorescent lights of interrogation rooms where revolutionaries met reality. And because Kathy and her man didn't get far after shooting the cops, they were going crazy with her. We've got a white woman in custody. Honda Civic looks to be in shock. Kathy was pulled from the wreckage of the botched getaway car, shaken, disoriented, but alive. The car had rammed a roadblock, and when anything goes sideways, guns out, bullet flying, 2 officers dead. The moment they snatched her up, she panicked. Do you know this lady started yelling and screaming? It was him, pointing at David, trying to deflect blame in real time. Some reports say she was terrified, in shock. Others say she was trying to distance herself from the bloodshed and the carnage, fast. Either way, the moment stuck. Not just because of what she said, but because of who she was. A white, former radical, Ivy League educated, 9 months pregnant, remember? And now, standing over the bodies of slain officers linked to a heist that was supposed to be bloodless, it became one of the most controversial details of the arrest. And I know David was disgusted knowing that he trusted her, and in the end, she turned out to be just like any other crowned white woman who cried wolf before it all happened. While she was discombobulated, yelling, screaming, and lying, David got away on foot. Realizing she was by herself, she surrendered without firing a shot. Realizing they had someone who was a part of the heist, they had to get Kathy downtown. In the interrogation room, they asked her, "Who are the men you were with? Start talking." Kathy, knowing exactly what to do in these situations, because remember, she grew up the daughter of a lawyer, she immediately asked for a lawyer. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She knew the playbook. She knew exactly what the stakes were. The Ivy League girl was long gone. What sat in that chair was a committed radical, eyes fixed on something higher than this moment. But she gave up nothing. While Kathy held the line, at this point, it all feels performative, because where was this energy when you was telling on David, ho? And David, he was in the wind. He was able to evade police for days until November 22nd. He was found in a safe house in Nyack, still wearing the same clothes from the heist. When they found him, he went quietly. No weapons, no resistance, just silence. This was a big deal. So everywhere they went, they always had people that were willing to talk. One neighbor said she saw him walking like he had nowhere to go, like he'd already left the world. David's arrest was quiet, but the storm that followed wasn't. And at this point, they've killed multiple police. They've taken these people $1.6 million. The government was not about to play with them. They launched a full-blown sweep targeting members of the Black Liberation Army, the Weather Underground, the M19CO. Warrants were issued for Matulu, Kawasi, Judith, Sam, everybody. Some were already underground, some were already halfway across the country. Miss Judith didn't make it far because 1 month later, she was picked up in Queens. She had a wig, cash, and fake IDs. When they got her, she also didn't say one word. The detectives was telling her, Judith, you were seen on the scene. You were the one with the baby carrier. You're caught. You can cooperate. Judith politely told them, I'm not talking. I'm a political prisoner. They offered her a deal. She spat it back in their face. Matulu, the architect, was gone, vanished. For 5 years, he was in the wind, back underground. They put his face in every single last post office in New York, every police station in New York. One day he'll show up in New York, then he'll show up in Oakland, and in Harlem the next. They couldn't catch a ghost because they never knew where to look. Federal agents had spent years running down leads, following paper trails, interrogating associates, listening in. What got them close wasn't a hot tip from the streets. It was old school detective work. They tracked Matulu through a web of safe houses, clinics, and suspected hideouts, mostly in the LA area. Surveillance team watched him for months. They knew he still had ties to the acupuncture world, the Black health collectives, and former comrades that would protect him at all costs. The final sting happened on February 2nd, 1986, in a quiet house in Los Angeles. No shootout, no long stands, just precision. He was arrested by a joint task force of the FBI, the NYPD, and the U.S. Marshals. He was taken into federal custody without incident. But make no mistake, this was years in the making. They've been watching the wrong people, asking the wrong questions until one informant, allegedly someone close to the movement, gave up just enough, a sliver. That's all they needed. And just like that, the ghost was caught. But Matulu wasn't finished yet, not even close, because the real battle, that was still coming. By the end of November, the feds had caught Kathy, Judith, and David. Sam, Sekou were also in custody. They were separated, monitored, fed the same questions over and over. Who else is in on it? Where's the money? Where's Shakur? But no one cracked, not even Kathy telling ass. America watched the arrest play out on the nightly news. To many, it was just another crime, but to Black communities watching, it was complicated. And I agree with the complexity that they were feeling because I was writing this story and it was hard for me not to root for them to get away, get the money, and go do something good with it. They lost me when the body started hitting the ground. But I completely get wanting to have something that's able to be ran by Black people for Black people so we can be self-sufficient within ourselves. We're 40 years past when this happened and we're still fighting for the same change. But I'm yet holding on because I feel like we are now closer to it than ever before. Some people at the time saw betrayal. Some saw the legacy of COINTELPRO, of assassinated leaders, of a war that never ended. And some just saw pain. 3 lives taken, 3 families shattered. And we are now on the Black docket. 3 revolutionaries stepped into courtroom surrounded by snipers and press. One turns her back on the movement. One remains silent to the end, and the last one pleads guilty and speaks the truth. And behind all of it, an empire of surveillance, informants, and federal playbooks that rewrote the rules of rebellion. By this time, the revolution had made it to court, but courtrooms are such juxtapositions because they are built for spectacles. And this case was prime for political theater. The bulletproof glass, the federal agents with itchy trigger fingers, and the front row packed with grief, rage, and history. The Brink's trial was split physically and philosophically. Black defendants on one side, white defendants on the other. Same heist, very different justice. The white defendants, Kathy, Judith, and David, went first. First to trial was Kathy. She was the first to break rank, kind of. After weeks of silence, Kathy pleaded guilty to felony murder, but not to pulling the trigger, but to being a part of the crew. She spoke on her own behalf, saying, "I regret the pain. I take full responsibilities for my participation." Her statement was calm, reflective, but it split the people still in the movement, the ones who were watching the case closely. Some say she folded. I feel like she folded. But others saw it as strategy, a way to lessen the blow, save her son, and avoid a life sentence. Y'all meet me on the socials and tell me what y'all think. And ultimately, it didn't matter one way or another because the court did not care. They gave her ass 20 years to life. Her baby daddy, David, refused to plead. He stood trial with Judith Clark in a spectacle the media couldn't stop devouring. The white radicals with baby soft hands and Harvard vocab, now in bulletproof cages, oh, they ate that up. But David never flinched. David looked them folks right in their face and said, "This trial is not legitimate. We are prisoners of war." He represented himself, tried to turn the trial into a classroom, quoting Fannin, Malcolm, Marx. The judge wasn't having none of that. Threw the book right at my boy, gave him 75 years to life, no parole. God damn. And then there was Judith, the theater kid turned outlaw. She leaned into the performance. She refused a lawyer, read manifestos into the record, denounced the court as a colonial institution. But it wasn't strategy, it was her belief. And her belief cost her 75 years to life, too. Decades later, she renounced the violence, called it tragic, said she found God, compassion, eventually even clemency, but not in 1981. Back then, Judith Clark was enemy number one, especially to the Nyack cops. So here's where it all snaps into place. The moment the blacks came from underground and they came to the surface, the arrests were messy, the fallouts were brutal, and the trials for them, they were nothing short of political theater. Picture this: a sea of federal agents in stiff suits, and on the other side, tired, defiant defendants in cheap state-issued khakis. The prosecution was ready to make examples out of every last one of them. We're talking about the black suspects now, the most important part to this story. The ones whose faces weren't splashed on the covers of Time and Newsweek with tragic backstories. Nah, these was the ghosts, the haunted, the terrorists. As they were labeled. And the courts, oh, they show no mercy. So let's start with Kawasi, former Panther, former soldier. He didn't get a lawyer. He was his own lawyer. Kawasi represented himself, not because he thought he'd win, but because he knew this was his last stage. He used every single last second he had to call out the system and what he had issue with. I mean, hell, they killed 3 people. They knew they were going to jail. So before y'all send me down the road, let me get my shit off. He told them that the court wasn't a place of justice. It was a clog in the machine that had been trying to kill black liberation since day one. His courtroom statements read like radical manifestos. No apologies, no surrenders, just telling them his thoughts and his beliefs. And guess what? That's his right, so they had to sit through it and listen. And I really hope someone in that courtroom was able to look past the messenger and listen to the message that he was trying to get across to them. Kawasi was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years for his role in the Brink's robbery and its related activities. And life is what he did because he passed away on December 13th, 1986, from complications related to AIDS. While looking in the face of death, he stayed a revolutionary. Incarcerated at Elmira Correctional Facility, he spent his final years writing, organizing, and refusing to recognize the authority of the government that imprisoned him. So while the system tried to bury him, he used every moment of that time to speak louder. And if you think the courtroom drama stops there, you would be mistaken, my friend. Because when it came to Matulu, the case wasn't just about his connection to the Brinks robbery. It was about the totality of the U.S. government's campaign to neutralize him. The trial was less about the heist and more about trying to erase everything he represented because it goes against the very idea that the government despises. Plus, this is a whole 5 years after the fact, so they definitely was ready to stick it to him. His defense was a direct challenge to that narrative. He actually wasn't some mastermind plotting against the government. He was a part of a larger network of Black liberation activists working to survive in a society that continually tried to crush them. Prosecutors built their case around surveillance, wiretaps, and photos of him attending meetings with radical groups. They also linked him directly to the prison break of Asada. The government tried to spin this evidence that he was a part of a larger criminal conspiracy. It really became the tale of two men because while the government was painting him as this villainous mastermind, his defense team argued he wasn't leading a life of crime. He was a healer, someone who had worked tirelessly to treat addiction in Harlem, shout out to Harlem, through acupuncture, and created networks of care in a world that offered no support to Black communities. They told the jury this man is not a criminal. He is a liberator and protecting and providing for his community. The prosecution wasn't buying it. They used the same old arguments about violence and revolution, ignoring the fact that his work in the clinics was in direct opposition to the oppression he was fighting. They were fixated on the Brinks robbery, which, let's not forget, had been one of the most ballsy acts of resistance in the 20th century still to this day. The feds made the case that his involvement in the heist was a direct result of his militant politics, and the trial was grueling. Surveillance footage, wiretap recordings, and a whole list of informants were through the table. The government's strategy was clear. They weren't going after the crime, they were going after the entire movement he represented. After a long and continuous trial, the jury came back with their verdict. Matulu Shakur was sentenced to 60 years in prison, a sentence that at the time seemed to break the back of the efforts to push for Black liberation and survival in this country. Sam and Chu, old school, militant, quiet. They weren't the loudest in court, but their past spoke volumes. Former Panthers, exiled fighters, and that scared the hell out of the government. They faced stacked charges: conspiracy, racketeering, insidious conspiracy. Yeah, that again. Insidious conspiracy. The charge they hit you with when they're trying to say this person wasn't just committing a crime, they were waging a war. They both got life sentences. But here's what the media didn't show. The courtrooms were charged, families packed into rows, FBI agents lurking in every corner, trying to see if anybody was there that's on a most wanted list, because obviously you see these people been planning their face for a very long time and going into hiding. After the trials came the wait. Decades of it. Steel bars, cement yards. The revolutionaries who once plotted armed truck robberies were now trading war stories in prison rec rooms, and outside, the world moved on because the fallout from the 1981 heist didn't stop at sentencing. Kathy became a model prisoner. She got a master's, helped women get legal aid. She worked on AIDS awareness behind bars. And in 2003, after 22 years, wouldn't you know, old Kathy was granted parole. The backlash was immediate because how could it not be? The NYPD units howled that they were highly upset that they were releasing a cop killer no matter what she looked like. The victims' families were understandably livid. But others saw this as justice evolving, that maybe, just maybe, people can change. Do y'all know this lady went on to become a professor at Columbia University? She led reentry programs, became a voice for prison reform. Now, I can respect this, and I just hope that that same type of understanding is not just reserved for our pale skinned friends. Okay? Her baby daddy David stayed locked down. That white justice did not help him at all. He stayed his ass right there with the long haulers. But in his case, somebody was working for him in the background. Matulu Shakur spent 36 years in federal prison. He had cancer, stage 4. Still, the government refused to let him go. It wasn't until 2022, after years of advocacy from activists, artists, and even members of Congress, that Matulu was released on compassion grounds, but they waited until death was at his door. He came home in a wheelchair, barely breathing, and died months later. And as for the newly Christian Judith, back in 2016, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo commuted her sentence, saying she was a model of rehabilitation. That meant she should go up for parole right away. And in 2019, after 37 years behind bars, Judith Clark walked out of Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. These days, she lives a quiet life, still doing social justice work, but keeping it low key. She's still a controversial figure, though. Some folks see her as a changed woman, a reformed revolutionary. Others will always tie her to the death of 2 police officers and a Brink's guard. But listen, Big Judy did her time. She didn't flip. She all right with me. I hope she's having a beautiful Easter wherever she is. Samuel Brown ended up being sentenced to 25 years to life. He's still locked up. He's been denied parole several times, and he's still calling himself a political prisoner. Chewy was released in 2014 after spending over 30 years on the inside. And Sekou was released in 2014 after more than 3 decades behind bars. The moment he stepped out, there was no shame, no apology, just a crowd waiting to greet him with raised fists and open arms. Always remember, every revolution leaves behind orphans, but some of those orphans fight back. Remember, I told y'all Kathy was 9 months pregnant. So imagine being born hours after your parents were arrested for murder. Imagine being raised by two of the most famous radicals in American history, Bill Ayers and our girl Bernadine Duran, who sent the letter of war to the U.S. government, while your biological mother, Kathy, and your biological father, David, is locked down and sentenced to 75 years to life. That was Chesa Bowden's childhood. But instead of picking up a gun, he picked up the law. He went to Yale, became a public defender, and in 2019 was elected as the district attorney of San Francisco, pledging to end cash bail, reduce mass incarceration, and hold police accountable. The son of Brink's radicals, prosecuting the system that tried to erase his parents. But justice, even progressive justice, has a short shelf life in America. By 2022, a tech fueled recall campaign backed by billionaires and boasted by Fox News pushed him out of office. Too soft on crime, they said. Too radical. Too legacy. And once again, Chelsea was proof you can inherit a revolution, but that doesn't mean the system will let you keep it. Here's the hard truth. If you Google the Brinks case, the faces you'll see, Kathy, David, but where's Matulu? Where's Judith? Where's Kawasi? Where's anybody else that we named? But they're there. They get buried deep, but they're there. And when it comes to legacy, visibility is survival. Back in 81, it was armed struggle, anti-imperialism, vanguard movements. Today, it's community defense, abolition. Different language, same urgency, same rage. When a cop gets away with murder, same grief when another activist dies in custody. And here's the uncomfortable question. Are we more free than we were in 1981 or just more polite? Because what the Brinks crew believed, right or wrong, bloodied or idealistic, was that America would never give up power willingly. And that real freedom might require fire. And still, we rise. But not all resistance looks like an armed convoy in Nyack. Sometimes it looks like a prison educator slipping a legal guide under a cell door, a single mom organizing bail funds off her phone, a teenager live streaming a cop with their hands shaking. And sometimes it's just remembering, saying their names, reading their writings, telling their full and uncut story. So, yeah, 1981 was loud, it was bloody, and it was complicated. But what came after, the silence, the edits, the erasure, that's what the black that's where the black docket comes in to fill in the blanks, to light the shadows. Because no one writes our history like we do. So that's the story of the 1981 Brinks robbery, radicals, resistance, regrets, and a whole lot of money that never made it nowhere. So what do you think? Revolution gone wrong, or was it a heist with heart that history just isn't ready to forgive? Either way, thank y'all for rocking with me. If you like this episode, y'all know what I always say: tell a friend, tell a cousin, tell an uncle, tell anybody. Send it. That helps us get more listeners. That helps us be able to get our message across. That help us reach more people, right? So make sure you're following the show. And remember, justice isn't just a destination, it's a journey. And we're all in this together. So let's keep the conversation going. Follow the Black Docket on all the things: Facebook at the Black Docket Crime Chronicles, Instagram at the Black Docket, and you can always shoot me an email at the blackdocketcc@gmail.com. And listen, whether you're binging, commenting, or just vibing in the background, you're a part of this too. This is your docket too. Got a tip, a story that I need to drag to the light? You know where to find me. Until next time, stay sharp, stay loud, and never forget, the truth doesn't knock, it kicked the damn dough in. This is the Black Docket, and it's Tammy signing out. So this week, you guys, I actually don't have a black light spotlight. So if you have anything that you want, spotlighted for the coming weeks, just send it to me. I'm willing to get your product out, your business out, your socials out. So just send them my way.
I feel like ever since I've been born, there have been so many unprecedented times. From 9/11 to COVID to this man being a president and now a felon. These times need to start being precedent state, and I'm not playing. I'm putting my foot down. Start precedenting the times. I cannot keep up. I cannot keep living like this. Every single time I turn around, I'm the first to experience something. I don't want to be the first anymore. I want to be like the second or third. Like back in the day, all they had was like the bubonic plague. Okay, get over it. Every single time I go to sleep, I wake up unprecedented times. This needs to end. I literally cannot handle another unprecedented time. Get some precedent around this hoe or else. And another thing.
And this week on Unprecedented Times, I have a couple things. This week, our first unprecedented time maker goes to Miss Jamira Harris, who becomes the first Miss Black and Gold crowned by the Delta Data chapter of the Bethune-Cookman University. And she's actually deaf. So she's the first deaf Miss Black and Gold. And I think that's so cool that the kids are now at a place where everybody is inclusive and everybody is understanding of those that have disabilities. So shout out to Cookman. Shout out to the Delta Beta chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha. That's such a good look for my school. Next, we have the first person was actually cured of sickle cell in New York. 21-year-old Sebastian Belize from Long Island was actually the first person ever in history to be cured for sickle cell anemia through gene therapy, which is super great for Black people because, obviously sickle cell attacks us the most and it hasn't been a cure for it. And I heard that it's very, 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 very painful. So I'm happy that as we get more technology, we're able to find cure for things. So I hope that this goes good. I hope he's able to live a long, prosperous life. And I hope that soon, whatever cure he was able to get will just be readily available for other people so people can stop suffering from sickle cell. And I think that's all I have for you guys. And then also, I did not forget this week, this week's listener of the week is going to go to Dark Capricorn Horse over on Spotify. She leaves comments for every single last one of the episodes that she listens to. They're always so informative. She definitely listens to the episode. She gives me answers to all the questions that I ask y'all. So, Dark Capricorn Horse girlfriend, thank you so much. You are definitely number 2 on my list of my ones that's riding for me. So thank you. Heart, 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 heart. I cannot wait to read your comments on this episode. But this is your girl Tammy signing out for this week, and I will see you guys next Monday.